It's also St. Patrick's Day and Hozier's birthday. Congratulations on the new EP.
Thank you.
Very exciting.
Thank you so much. It's a fun day. I feel blessed.
I want to talk about all of the songs, but let's back up a little bit. Your last album, 2019's Wasteland Baby, you wrote it just after you came off of touring. This time around, very different situation. You know, the first song that you started recording for this EP is Through Me, the Flood. You wrote it during the pandemic, and there is a real feeling of isolation in the lyrics. You know, there's the speck out from shore, a man above the outer atmosphere of a world he's never seen. At one point, this man is even in a grave. Take us back to those days. Like, what was the adjustment like coming off of these busy few years and then suddenly being at home and kind of being alone?
Yeah. It was a funny time. I think I was very fortunate that I came off the road in December of 2019, and within 2.5 months, the world had sort of changed. But I had planned to take 2020 to sort of take stock and to rest and to write and to travel. So I was so incredibly fortunate in so many ways that my tour cycle, my album cycle, had come to an end at that point. But I think, at first when I think about writing that song and how that idea kind of came about, I was sort of just spending the days sort of catching up with some stuff that I really had wanted to achieve then for the previous few years, spending time at home, spending time by myself, learning how to at home when you're away on the road for so long, you kind of miss the small comforts. You miss waking up and making yourself coffee. You miss making yourself breakfast. You miss spending time around your oven and stuff like that, around your sort of these very simple domestic things that make a house kind of a home, I guess, and to use a cliche, but to bond with the space that's your own. So I was really just doing that, and I was reading a few books that I always thought that I should read, I guess, or always thought that I wanted to read.
Like what?
Being interested. I have interest in poetry, but I've always been interested in how you can find so much of modern day sensibilities and modern day fears and terrors and loves and cares in very, very old pieces of text. So I was reading Metamorphoses by Ovid, who is a Roman poet, and Dante and Inferno. I don't know, I was just fascinated with those, and so I was dipping in and out in those long sort of early mornings of that pandemic, and it just was this big mix, this big soup of like images and feelings and how they sort of found their way into these songs.
So you're catching up on reading that you wanted to do. I mean, I've talked to several artists who wrote during the pandemic, and for some people it came easier to write. For some people it was harder. How easily did songwriting come for you during those early months?
I didn't find it too easy, I have to say. I think there was moments where things were fruitful, and there was moments where things were, absolutely not. And there was a lesson in learning when it's not being fruitful to just sit with that and be okay with that. And I think all the ideas that I had been working on the road seemed frivolous after the fact that after March 2020, everything seemed to the world went on its head. And there was this sort of tidal wave of grief and unsurety and loss that seemed to be rolling across the world a little bit. I did find it a challenge. It was kind of the question being what's worth saying at a time like that. I think was tricky.
I think, lots of people experienced loss during the pandemic, all sorts of different kinds of loss, whether it was, literally losing somebody, or you might mourn your hobby that you would go out and do, or seeing your friends. For you, you said that song has you reflecting on loss. What was the loss that was looming the largest for you at that point?
I think there was a number of things. I think everybody was afraid to lose a loved one at a time like that. I had a lot of loved ones close to me who were quite unwell for reasons outside of COVID itself. That loomed very, very heavily across that, and unfortunately across all of the album. So this fear of loss was always there. And then it was trying to also, I think in Through Me, it was trying to distill down this idea that, look, there was all of these numbers being thrown at us every day. I found like there was news reports every single day of what the death toll was in different countries in Europe, certainly back and at home in Ireland, summing it up week on week, day on day of like here's the recent figures, and it was just so surreal even looking back, and so trying to measure then quantify in that second verse like measure 6 feet in the ground and like measure the silence of a house, forever. It's one loss is the end of a world. Is the world ending for somebody, and in a very real sense for somebody who has died, but for somebody who stands by that graveside, the world is over. For a lot of people. So it was just trying to make sense of that on an individual basis, in the wake of this the enormity of it. But so yeah, it was just. So Through Me is definitely was a song that was written earlier in the sessions.
You just heard Hozier with Through Me, The Flood. I'm speaking with Hozier today on World Cafe. Let's turn to the other two songs on the EP, Eat Your Young and All Things Ed. I know they'll be on your upcoming album, and I understand that they're inspired by what you were saying, Dante's Inferno. And I don't want to put you on the spot and make you give a book report right now, but for people who haven't read Dante's Inferno or The Divine Comedy, could you sum it up really quick for people?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want people to think you don't need to have done a book report. There's nothing, and even the songs themselves are very. There is nods to that like literary work, but it's not. It was very important to me that these exist as far away from that literature as possible, as well too, that they can just be enjoyed on face value. But it was more arranging the album into themes of circles. So Dante's Inferno is this like is like a spirit, is like a dream quest, is like this very disillusioned Florence poet at the time who had been exiled from his home of Florence, had a lot of choice things to say about the politics of his city and the politics of the I suppose the institutionalized Roman Catholic Church at the time. This is like 1300s, you know what I mean? So it's very old, but he developed this terza rima and created this whole poem about his journey from being lost and then meeting a poet that he greatly admires, who guides him through 9 circles and then out the other side and into then Purgatorio, which is still on his journey up to the divine, shall we say. But it's more just taking that shape of going down, descending into something, walking through something, going on a journey and coming out the other side. And I suppose that's I've only just wanted to arrange the album into that. So it's really just the shape that the album takes,
Why did that shape captivate you?
I think it was more just finding some way to credit a journey without making a pandemic album, and I think I didn't want that to be the case. I think Through Me says a lot. It really overspills lyrically, and I think the album, I just wanted to credit that element of all of us. I think, well, certainly myself, but I think a lot of us walked into something or found ourselves in something and then came out the other side eventually, albeit with having something changed, you know what I mean, either by choice or because something was taken from us, and I was trying to credit that.
The song Eat Your Young, I know you said that it sort of reflects the gluttony part of Dante's Inferno, and I'm not trying to assume here, but it sounds like it could be about future generations experiencing the consequences of late capitalism and overconsumption. I don't know if I'm close, but what were you thinking about when you were writing it?
I suppose it's taking a sort of tongue-in-cheek look at it and writing with an unreliable narrator's voice and relishing exactly in the taking of all things that can be taken, the sort of rapacious elements of our current momentum, and just bringing that to its logical and grotesque conclusion, if that makes sense. So if we're okay with profiteering off of stuff that we know causes such destruction, why not just skip the middleman? You know what I mean? So if you're putting food on the table, selling bombs and guns, it's quicker and easier to just eat your young. Right?
More efficient.
Far more efficient. Yeah, exactly.
You just heard Eat Your Young from Hozier's new EP of the same name. My name is Raina Duras. The song All Things End is related to the sixth circle of hell, which is the heretics. And heresy, I feel like, might be one of the more difficult ones to write about. For people who don't know what heresy is, it's defined as belief or opinion contrary to orthodox religious doctrine. And yeah, of all the circles, it seems like one of the more challenging ones to get a handle on. But why is that a thing that interests you?
Why is it heresy? I think that just took up the heresy. And I will say it was tricky on the album. When the album comes, there'll be loads to say about it. But because there was so many, I had a lot of songs to choose from that could be heresy. I released a song just late last year called Swan Upon Leda, which very nearly took that slot. All Things End, I suppose, in the actual title itself, could be considered under that definition as something heretical. You know what I mean? The idea that there is no such thing as that something that's everlasting. But then also it's just a love song. It's just a breakup song.
It does sound like it's a breakup song. Like it's a beautiful breakup song.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So this is what I mean with the songs just being able to just be themselves too, and so it really is just. And I think when you're in a relationship that you are so invested in, and it's such a part of you at that stage, the conversation or the approach where you are discussing this having to end at first seems like something that is heretical. You know, it's because it is something that you believe in, and it's something that you have so much faith in, and you have such love for, and so discussing or approaching the idea that that must disintegrate can feel like a heretical thing. But the actual title itself, All Things End, it could be by the strict definition heresy itself. You know?
Right. Let's take a listen to All Things End. Hozier, new music on World Cafe.